So, what is a word? Sounds simple, right? But believe me, the answer is one of the coolest puzzles in all of language. And today, we're going to crack it. And look, to get why this even matters, check out this quote from linguist David Wilkins. He said, "Without grammar, very little can be conveyed. Without vocabulary, nothing can be conveyed." Whoa, that puts words, vocabulary right at the heart of everything. But again, it brings us back to that question. What are they, really? All right, let's put our own intuition to the test. Have a look at this list. Which of these do you think are real English words? Sizzle? What about urgentish or washing machine? Absobletantly. Seriously? Go ahead and pause if you want. Take a guess. The fact that this is way harder than it looks? Well, that's kind of the whole point of what we're digging into today. Okay, so here's the game plan. First, we're going to ask what even makes a word a word. Then we'll run through 5 common sense tests that, spoiler alert, all totally fail. After that, we'll get into the linguist's secret weapon, a term called a lexeme, and then break that down even further into its building blocks, morphemes. And we'll wrap up with the trickiest part of all, the super slippery nature of meaning. All right, let's kick off this investigation. So linguists basically sort words into 2 big buckets. In the first bucket, you've got your content words. Think nouns, verbs, adjectives, the heavy lifters that carry the actual meaning. And what's cool is this is an open class. We can add to it whenever we want. It's why we can Google things now. The other bucket has function words. This is all the grammatical glue, words like the, for, or it. And this is a closed class. We're not about to invent a brand new preposition tomorrow, right? But, even with that nice, neat distinction, things get messy fast. And that brings us to the real heart of the problem. I call it the 5 failed tests. This is where we're going to see how every single common sense way you've ever thought about defining a word just completely falls apart. Okay, test number 1, the potential pause. The idea is simple, right? We pause between words when we talk. But try this. Say, "I've an idea," out loud, just at a normal speed. Go on. Did you actually pause between I've and an? No, of course not. It all just mushes together. So, boom. Test 1 fails. All right, next up, the indivisibility test. This one says words are like little Lego bricks. You can't just crack one in half and shove another word inside. Makes sense. But what about when someone says something like abso-freaking-lutely? We literally split a word wide open to add emphasis. It's not something we do every day, but the fact that we can do it means words aren't always indivisible. So test number 2, busted. Okay, how about test 3, the minimal free forms test? This one's the idea that a word is the smallest thing you can say that can stand all by itself and still mean something. Seems pretty solid, doesn't it? But remember those little function words like the or for? If I just say the, does that mean anything on its own? Not really. It needs other words to do its job. So yeah, this test doesn't really work either. All right, maybe we can just listen for the boundaries. Test number 4, phonetic boundaries. The idea here is that we use stress and sound to hear where words begin and end. But listen to this. Say these 2 things out loud quickly. Ice cream. Now say ice cream. Hear that? Ice cream, ice cream. They sound almost exactly the same. The sounds alone don't give us a clear line. So another one bites the dust. Okay, here's our last shot, our final common sense idea. Test number 5. Semantic units. One word equals one thing or one idea. Simple. Dog, tree, run. Easy. But what about something like the White House? That's 3 words, but it refers to one single thing. Or the verb pick up. 2 words, but it's one single action. So it's pretty clear that one unit of meaning doesn't always equal one word. So we're 5 for 5 on failed tests. Our intuition just isn't cutting it. Where do we go from here? Well, this is where the linguists come to the rescue with a much better tool for the job. It's the key to this whole puzzle, and it's called a lexeme. Basically, to get around this whole messy problem, linguists often just push the everyday word word to the side and use this more precise term, lexeme. The best way to think of a lexeme is like a file folder in your brain. It's the abstract idea of a word. It's the single dictionary entry that holds all the different versions of that word. Let me give you a super simple example. Let's take the lexeme old. Now, inside that old file folder, you've got the words old, older, and oldest. They all point back to that same core idea, right? So, are they 3 different words? Kinda, yeah. But are they all part of one single lexeme? You bet. See? It's just a much cleaner way of looking at it. Okay, so the lexeme is great for grouping words together. But what are the actual words themselves made of? What are their tiny little parts? To figure that out, we've got to zoom in even closer, pop the hood, and look at the absolute fundamental building blocks of language. We're talking about morphemes. So a morpheme? This is as small as it gets. It's the smallest piece of a language that still has meaning. And here's the key thing you gotta get. Sometimes a morpheme is a whole word by itself, but sometimes it's just a piece of a word, like a prefix or a suffix. And these morphemes come in 2 flavors. You've got your free morphemes. These guys can stand all alone and be a word. Think house or keep. They're independent. But then you have bound morphemes. These are the clingy ones. They're prefixes and suffixes that have meaning, but they have to be attached to another word to work, like dis in dislike or the ing in walking. Okay, pop quiz time. Let's see if you're getting this. I want you to count the morphemes, the little units of meaning in this sentence. His hopeful words really encouraged me. Remember to look for both the free and the bound parts. How many you got? Did you get it? The answer is 11. Let's walk through it. You've got hiss, then hope and full, word and s, real and ly, encourage and d, and finally, me. See how that works? Hopeful isn't 1 unit, it's 2, hope and full. Words is word plus the plural s. Every single one of those little bits adds a piece of meaning. That's the power of morphemes right there. But, understanding how words are built is really only half the story. Now we get to the final boss, the most complicated piece of this entire puzzle, the tricky, slippery, constantly shifting nature of meaning. So a word's meaning really works on 2 different channels. First, you have the denotation. That's just the plain, boring dictionary definition. But then you've got the connotation. That's the feeling of a word, all the emotional baggage it carries around. Think about it. Thrifty and tight-fisted can describe the exact same behavior. But thrifty sounds like a good thing, while tight-fisted is definitely an insult. And all of this leads us to the most powerful force of all, context. I want you to listen to the start of this sentence. At the end of the street was a bank. Okay, pause. What's in your head right now? I bet you're picturing a building, probably with an ATM, right? A place for money. And he drove down it into the river, and bam. Just like that, the picture in your head completely changes. The context flipped the meaning on its head. We weren't talking about a money bank at all. We were talking about a river bank. It's the exact same 4 letters, B-A-N-K, but the words around it change everything. So there you have it. The simple word turns out to be anything but simple. We've seen how all our gut feelings about what a word is just don't hold up to scrutiny. We learned that we need these better tools like the lexeme to organize word families and the morpheme to see their tiny building blocks. And in the end, we saw how meaning itself can totally shift based on feeling and context. Which kind of leaves you with this one big final question, right? If just one word can be this complicated, what does that say about the amazing, intricate sentences we build with them every single day?